Hello everyone. I've noticed I've had a bit of a run on more recent horror, and when I do this, I like to have a bit of a variety in my choices. So for today, I went back to my childhood, one of my favorite movies. This was my go-to whenever I was going to a sleepover back in grade school. I even let a girl I was interested in borrow the movie as a way of getting closer. Yes, I realize how that sounds. Those who knew me growing up know exactly which one I'm talking about. It is, of course, the classic and wonderful Army of Darkness. Before I gush about this movie, I have to disclose that I watched the director's cut for the first time, and sadly, it's the inferior, but still great, version. There's only about 15 minutes of extra content, and it doesn't really add much except extend some sequences. It has the original ending where he sleeps too long, and there are scenes that are out of order from the version I'm used to. An example is when Duke Henry the Red shows up. In this cut, he arrives at the tail end of the battle, which, in my opinion, lessens the impact. I enjoy the theatrical ending where he battles the Deadite at S-Mart a whole lot more, but the most egregious change, when he shoots Evil Ash with his boomstick, he doesn't say, "Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun." Instead, he says, "I'm not all good." Unacceptable. Now that that's out of the way, this movie is all kinds of wonderful, wrapped completely in awesome. Let's start at the beginning. Ash gives some narration as he's in captivity being marched to his execution. The events of the last movie send him back in time to the Middle Ages, and he gets mistaken for a vassal of a lord who came out on the losing end of a battle. Naturally, Ash gets the upper hand, and the rest of the people there realize he's the chosen one. After awesomely destroying 3 Deadites, the wise men send him to get the Necronomicon, or Book of the Dead. Now, because he's Ash, he screws up and accidentally wakes up an army of the dead who desperately want that book back. I'm trying and failing to accurately describe the insanity of this movie, because it's just impossible to do. From traveling back in time, battling a witch inside a pit, hilariously fighting evil Minnie and then a large version of himself, and to tie a nice bow and everything, he goes to war with skeletons. This movie is pretty much everything anyone could want. Now, it's weird because the sillier this movie gets, the better it becomes, and literally everything it throws at you works. Now, it's mainly because of the protagonist. Ash, played by Bruce Campbell, has always been my favorite movie hero. His unearned confidence, his clueless, unending arrogance, and my goodness, his dialogue. It's incredible. This has to be one of the most quotable movies ever. There are so many wonderful lines that can be used in any situation. Just about every time Ash opens his mouth, he says something great. He's just so cool. I mean, he has a chainsaw attached to his severed hand and a sawed-off shotgun. What more do you want? But I digress. This is the third movie in the Evil Dead series, and tonally, it's very different from the other two. While the originals had funny moments, more so in the second one, it was still grounded in horror. This one has a few unsettling moments like Ash's reflection standing while he's sitting, but they don't last long because a minute later he's fighting a group of mini versions of himself. I could ding this movie a bit because outside of Ash and Evil Ash, there aren't too many characters worthy of remembering. You can make a case for Arthur, Sheila, Henry the Red, maybe the blacksmith, but everyone else is pretty much wallpaper. Still, you don't notice that because you have Bruce Campbell hamming it up in medieval times. I've said this many times, but Campbell is a genius when it comes to physical comedy. You watch these movies and later the TV show, and it's just incredible the lengths he's willing to go through. Everything in the Evil Dead verse is practical effects, and he spends a lot of time just covered in blood, dirt, and worse. His mannerisms and the way he reacts to a situation are just always a blast to watch. As I'm doing this review, I'm trying to think of some complaints, and they're just not coming to me. It's full of highlight scenes that my friends and I used to try and recreate all the time. A fun one would be one of us dropping a bat from a high distance, and the other jumping up in the air to catch it like Ash does the chainsaw. And of course, we're always trying to find ways to pull off his ultimate badass showing, where he shoots the witch behind his back and breathes out in the coolest way imaginable. This was probably the movie of my childhood, and it's firmly entrenched in my top 5 all time. It's just so much fun to watch, even before the big fight at the end. Despite causing all this mess, Ash managed to rally the people to fight every single person who has ever died in battle. The spectacle is the best they could do with their limited budget, but there's explosions, skeletons, flying monsters, and a windmill death machine. Something this movie does really well, it knows the exact right moment for a big scene to happen for maximum effectiveness. From when Ash gets his chainsaw when he's riding the aforementioned machine and Henry the Red's ride, everything is built up perfectly. An example would be the tide of the battle is firmly going the wrong way. The camera lingers on Arthur, who says, "God save us all." Then a second later, a door bursts open and you see Ash in the ridiculous steam-powered car driving through hordes of skeletons telling them, "Welcome to the 21st century." I get butterflies every time. This is one of the most fun movies you're ever going to see, and while it's probably the movie I've seen most times, it never gets old. 10 Dr. Chainsaws.